Hello and welcome to the Scenario Moment. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Brad Hathcock. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
It's been like 2 weeks.
Shall we come up to speed?
Yeah, let's. What have you been up to these last 2 weeks?
Oh, not as much as you. You are in the construction industry now, which congratulations on. It's a big step.
Yes, I've officially changed careers. I am now a roofer.
Tell us about if you can make it interesting, then tell us about it. If you can't, then don't.
It's generally not interesting. When I bought my house, I have this alcove just that was full of river rock and bushes. And you know my river rock
You do love River
lifelong
Rock.
story, removing. I couldn't even tell you how much river rock from my house. But we pulled all these bushes out, and then we had concrete poured back there. Well, then it's just a concrete slab, and it doesn't really do anything. We never sat there outside, nothing. It needed something to make it like an entertaining space. Um, so initially, the idea was to build a pergola. Not really going to happen. Couldn't buy one. The space is like a very weird size. So we ended up settling on building something, and it went from building a pergola to building a roof. That's 12 feet wide, 16 feet long, and a pain in my ass. So it's also attached to my house. So you had to like you had to drill into the brick mortar and stuff like that to bolt it into the house so that it holds all the weight. It was a pain in my ass carrying shingles up a ladder for days on end. like I was building it slowly, and then I put my ass into gear just before the 4th of July to essentially finish the the roof so that we could have people over for the 4th of July. And I got a lot of compliments on it. I feel accomplished, which is not something we do here on the Elemosynary Moment. We don't
Hmm.
accomplish things. So this is probably like the first big accomplishment I've had in a while.
That's great. It looked great. I saw the pictures. It looked great. Uh, I am an inside boy, so I just did inside things. I did get out and finally see F1 with Brad Pitt, and that's why my name is Brad Pitt's co-driver. That was a great movie. I had a great time. I don't know. That's about all I got. All I got.
Well, I try to do things right, like building that roof, which is actually just outside the window, which I'm sitting next to. Not this one. There's another window to my left, and it's sitting just outside of there. I can see it from here, so I always have a reminder that of what I've done. But that probably would have cost me $10,000+ just to put that roof on there. Now they probably would have had it done in 2 days or something like that, instead of over the span of, I don't know, 2 months or however long it took me to do it. Um, but I saved myself probably 8 to 10 grand just by doing it myself, which I like that. I like saving my money and not wasting all of it. But I'm happy with it. So we'll see
Well,
if it falls down or if it leaks.
it doesn't look like it will. It looks sturdy and good. It looks professional.
No, luckily my neighbor is actually a contractor. So I got a lot of advice and tips from him. So hopefully it doesn't fall down. I mean, he was walking on top of it as well, and it didn't go anywhere. So we'll see what happens in the winter if we get a blizzard or something.
I wish you would have talked to me. I could have given you some advice on using wood, and you got to have a ladder and a hammer. So I would have had no help, but you didn't come to me, so I guess you didn't need me.
Well, I guess you can't help from 3,000 miles away, sir.
I could give you support, verbal support.
Stop. We don't do that here.
To,
Or in our group chat. We don't
I, I,
we
wa-
don't do support.
I want to say I did not give him support. Just to say I was on brand in that way.
Our
Um,
number one fan, his response was nice wood and jump off.
we're still waiting for you to jump off. I mean, you could make the landing. It's fine. You might hurt
It's
yourself, but
only, I mean, realistically, at the very front, about 7 or 8 feet high, I guess. So
Yeah,
like you could jump off.
I mean, it wouldn't feel good, but you could do it.
Well,
So,
you gotta tuck and roll. That's the thing about jumping. Like, just ask Tom Cruise. You just gotta like tuck and roll.
or yeah, I guess any video game would tell you that you could just do this, with few consequences. So that's cool. We got that out of the way. The roof in the room. I don't know where to go from here. I guess we could talk about what happened because there's everything that we had premonitioned on last time happened, and so news wise, like I'll give you two. We could talk about Iraq really quick, or Iran, Freudian slip, or we could talk about the budget bill.
Let's go with Iran. The budget bill might take longer.
Yeah, there's not. I guess there's not much. It's unclear how much damage was done to Fordow, but we did use those B2s finally, and those big 30,000 pound bombs, and we dropped them into a precise little hole within the ventilation shafts of Fordow. And I gotta say, it looks like it worked. Initial reports were that it didn't, but then kind of like it did. So unclear.
Well, all of a sudden, members of Congress are experts in, I guess, bomb efficiency or efficacy and demolition and stuff like that because they're, obviously it comes from both sides, right? So Democrats are like, it didn't work, ha ha ha. And then they also were saying, this is going to be a forever war, and this is not what we want. And, he didn't have congressional authorization and all this other shit, right? But that's not true. Reports have been a little bit muddied. Some are coming out saying it didn't do as much. Some are saying that he set their nuclear program back by at least 2 years, which is kind of a long time. But he's essentially trying to now broker a peace deal between Israel and Iran, which is, very weird. Like, it's Trump, right? Like, he does one thing and then he immediately jumps to the other side of it and is like, let's fix this now. But we've seen this before to a lesser extent with like Syria. I don't know if you remember, he dropped bombs on a an airstrip in Syria and during his first term.
During the
Um,
first like week, I think.
I don't think it was his first week in office, but I think it was relatively early in his career. But he just has a habit of doing that, and nobody was crying about him and a congressional authority to drop some bombs on Syria. At least not that I remember, not to this extent. Um, so we have Democrats out here defending Iran, who has been long one of the axes of evil, axes,
X's.
I don't know, axis of evil for quite a while, right? They're in bed deep with Russia and China and all this other stuff, but I think it's very telling that China and Russia haven't really done anything except like run their mouth a little bit after all of this has happened, but they haven't really offered up any support or aid or anything to Iran. Now Trump's trying to broker a peace deal between Hamas and Israel as well. So we're seeing that. But the Houthis did just blow up a tanker, I believe, somewhere in the Red Sea, I think it was. So they're still going strong. But I think that the Houthis are probably a little bit more separate from Iran than like Hamas or Hezbollah are, because like Hezbollah's been all quiet on the Lebanon front and
I think
everything, right?
Hezbollah's
So
like actually gone full reset. Like, maybe we should just be legitimate now.
well, they had to remove a lot of their military equipment from the like miles and miles away from the border of Israel in Lebanon. It was part of the deal that they made and stuff. So, we're starting to see peace deals, I guess, if you want to call it that. But
I would
you
call it
know,
that.
I think as much as Hamas is a terrorist organization, they are also the governing body of Gaza and Palestine.
That's
So
the trick.
it's like you kind of have to go into it with diplomacy, I guess, because they are a governing body. So it's weird, but yeah, Iran looks like it's hurting right now. I mean, their retaliatory strikes on Israel were minimal at
Yeah,
best.
it was there were damage, there were lives lost, but could have been a lot worse.
Right, not to minimize that, but like I think they are really showing that they aren't what they project to be. Um, and we saw that one video of like bombs dropping on one of the state-run news stations in Iran. They were like fleeing live on camera because shit was being bombed, which was kind of funny. But I what's Iran gonna do? Like, I think they're looking for regime change here. Khamenei he disappeared for weeks, and I think he just made his first public appearance within the last 2 or 3 weeks since we bombed them. I guess he's probably feeling like maybe it's over. But make no mistake, there's got to be some coup going because Israel, I believe, is what arming uh, ISIS groups, not maybe not in Iran, but in Palestine and stuff like that too. So, uh, there's going to be a lot of shit that goes on over there that's going to be a little weird, I think.
You'll probably get some good news. I haven't read the news today, but that Netanyahu's in Washington D.C. and there's probably going to be some. I don't know if it's going to be a hostage deal that's going to be the ceasefire. So like they return 30 hostages out of the 60 or whatever's left, and then I think Israel's ultimate war aims was to make sure Hamas just didn't exist. So like if they could just get Hamas leadership to just leave, I think that would probably be good with them.
I think that's off the table. I know some of the frameworks of the deal, 100%, where I think Israel gets like 10 hostages back now, and then on day 50 they would get like Israeli bodies that are deceased and more hostages back on day 50 as long as nobody broke the ceasefire deal, something like that.
10
But
live hostages.
right, and I do know that they are trying to put in there that Hamas is done governing, but that might be a deal breaker, because quite frankly, again, we talked about this when all of this shit first started, is who is the governing body. Israel doesn't want anything to do with it. The United States isn't going to be the a governing body of Palestine. Like, who's going to do it? Nobody wants the PLO in there. Like, it's you end up creating a power vacuum, and then you have Libya all over again. Like, just on a smaller scale, I guess.
It would be a problem if they weren't so close in proximity, but that's why it's a problem because they don't want to deal with this again. And Hamas has a remarkable ability to reconstitute itself as the birth rate in Gaza goes up. Apparently, like they just, contrary to what everybody seems to think, aid gets through. Hamas threw a grenade at somebody yesterday. Like, I don't know, but on the positive front, this might have been the moment where finally, your Saudi Arabias and your Emirates could finally come to the table and really make that Abraham Accords thing work across the board.
Right.
So
now, Obama killed a U.S. citizen in a drone strike and droned a lot of women and children and won a Nobel Peace Prize.
Sure did.
If Trump brings peace through Israel to the Middle East, you think they're just going to impeach him again? Or you think that they'll finally give him a peace prize?
They'll impeach him by the end of his term for something. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know if he'll deserve it. He probably will. No, he's never going to get a Nobel Peace Prize, no matter what he does. That body is never going to give him that. So yeah, I don't know what he thinks he's going to accomplish. I mean, he's still trying. He talks to Putin like once a month.
Russia could pull. I think he could have it like he could broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine. And like Russia would pull out, and they would be like, you know what, Putin's done, and we're pro-Western now, and we love America, and they still wouldn't give this motherfucker a peace prize. I guarantee it.
Oh no, and I don't,
They'd be like, "Look, he's siding with the enemy."
well, you said it yourself. Like, does the Nobel Peace Prize matter? Like, no, because they gave it to Barack Obama for basically right after he got elected. They were like, he gets it for being elected, and it's like, okay. I mean, those things are meaningless. All the Nobel prizes are meaningless, though. So sure, Trump wants to put one on the wall, but he's never going to get one. Um, and yeah, I mean that whole Russia Ukraine conflict is, it just seems so like it's never going to happen. Every time that they get on a phone call, we're trying to appease Russia, which I don't know why we're trying to do that, but it's always like, could you please stop now? And they're like, probably not, because you're not really, you're kind of taking us seriously, so why would we stop now? Like, oh, you're going to hold up weaponry for Ukraine, and what you're like helping us essentially.
Yeah, I think we see this drag out
A long
through
time.
probably this entire presidency at least, and drags into like 8 years or so. Um, we're talking probably, I would venture to guess, probably like 10 to 12 year war, assuming that Ukraine can withstand that length of time,
I
because
don't I don't know.
they've now since, I don't know if we talked about this or not. They What they were doing in terms of drafting people in Ukraine were leaving people under the age of like 25 out of their draft, but drafting people up into I think their 60s. Well, because they wanted to like preserve the youngest generation of Ukraine to continue on, which is generally smart. But now they're offering them like free college and like all this money and stuff like that to join the military, and kids are going and doing it, and it's like pissing off some of the older people in the military because they're like, I don't get paid what they're getting paid. I don't get free housing and free like college and like all of this other shit. And so now kids are kind of joining the war effort and an attempt to, I guess, make a better life for themselves at some point. But you have to survive in order to do that, right? And um, I will say I feel like we've seen a slowdown, at least in the news, because everyone's now just covering Trump stuff. So we probably see a lot less news about the Russia-Ukraine war, unless you're really looking for it. But it's not like an everyday blast like we were seeing under like the Biden administration and stuff like that, where it's like they just hammered this Ukraine Russia thing like every single day. So it seems like it's slowing down a little bit, at least in terms of coverage.
Well, a lot of it too is that Ukraine has managed to do amazing marvels of technology using drones, and the 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 technology that they've created just to fight this war is really something. Like, they have this new weapon that can shoot net, really, and so it could take down a drone if Russia's using a drone. They now are able to bypass the electronic warfare of the Russians using drones that are connected via fiber optic, and the fiber optics can go like miles. And it's an environmental hazard that's going to have to be cleaned up in like 20 years anyway, because there's just fiber optic cable now all over the countryside. But that's like the only way they could do it, right? But they've managed to reduce casualties by using that, and the Russians just continue to pump meat into the grinder. Uh, and so it's not
Which
like
is
other,
standard for them.
yeah, it's not like other wars where Russia can just use people as a bludgeon to win, because there are really no people on the battlefield. They're miles away. They're using this technology, and that's probably why you don't hear about it much unless you're really looking up on it. But it's been really impressive to watch, and it sucks because Ukraine's being forced to do it cheaper and from a distance, because we just never gave them the tools to actually do the job. And I don't know how long it could go for, but I don't see them giving up either. So
I think a lot of people are kind of saying like this is the way of testing um, military capabilities, right? So, like, kind of unfortunately, Ukraine is the guinea pig for the United States to be like, well, how does our military equipment operate in a real war by giving them some things. because we weren't using, it's different fighting against like Russian tanks and stuff like that versus Afghanis and Iraqis and shit that don't have all of the things that our military has, right? So it's kind of a test on some of our military equipment. Um, but you're right, Ukraine has invented some like very interesting applications for modern warfare, and there's articles coming out saying like are learning so much about just our capabilities in general with this kind of war, and what I guess the future of war could look like with drones and things. And imagine the R&D that we have to put into these drones and stuff like that. And I mean, or look at China. Like China already has like crazy drones, like all their drones that make those like stupid 3D hologram like displays and stuff like that. Obviously, they have some form of military capability through their drone programs as well. So that definitely seems like it could be the future of warfare that we're heading towards.
Yeah, and it's also just really cheap, but it's also really dangerous because it's cheap. So it doesn't cost you any lives. There's no downside to doing it that way, but then it does make it so that you might be inclined to use that kind of weaponry more freely, and in a future conflict it could be bad. But
It keeps people off the battlefield. Like you were saying, that's maybe why we don't hear about it as much, because they're kind of sitting behind the lines and throwing drones out there, right? So you're seeing less casualties on the Ukraine side. Um, and that could be easy. Like, oh, well, let's just send a swarm of 200 drones instead of sending 200 people, and you'll probably kill more people with 200 drones than you do with 200 people. So
yeah,
it's definitely a possibility,
yeah,
especially because to think of like you can put a pretty large explosive package on a pretty small drone and deliver it completely free. And I mean, that's what we do, right? Like, but we have giant Hellfire missiles that come down from our drones. But you can fly that drone from 10,000 miles away and kill people with it. And this is just be a smaller version of that. Obviously, like you're deploying people, it doesn't go as far as like those giant drones do, but they will have capabilities on the battlefield for sure. And I'm sure we probably have drone capabilities like that as well that we just don't really see.
yeah. Can't say much on that point, but I will say that yes, it it shows a lot. It just Russia's still launching missiles at civilian targets, and other than that, the battlefield is kind of frozen. So I'm not sure there's much more to talk about there right now. But I think both of these, I think hitting Iran may have given the Chinese something to think about if now that they know that we would do something. I don't know if we would do something when it comes to Taiwan, but it might make them think twice at least.
Yeah, I think that's possible, especially because obviously we're talking about Israel here. That's kind of what you're saying. Like they attacked our partner in Israel, and so it became a little bit of a bigger issue. But Israel did kind of, I guess, they retaliated on a higher scale, probably considered than what they were attacking, right? So it's like kind of equal reaction. And there is a thought from some people that Israel's using us, right, to do this kind of shit and like pull us into conflict that ultimately isn't ours to be in. Um,
The,
I
the,
disagree
well,
with
that argument's
Iran
stupid, right?
in that regard. Yes, I disagree with it in regards to Iran, because as we had discussed here, and I was apparently pretty fucking correct about this, about Iran getting a nuclear weapon and capabilities, and that they were weeks away. Again, it's not like I have any intelligence on that. It's just this has been happening for so long. We we knew that regardless of what what deals you have with them in regards to nuclear power and enriching uranium and stuff, that they were secretly building a weapon because that's the only thing that they have, right? And we're seeing that now that they don't have that, they have a projection of power that is clearly being deteriorated by everything that Israel's doing and we're doing, and like shutting down all of their ability to defend themselves and fire ballistic missiles into Israel and stuff. And Israel did this over, I mean, they've clearly been planning this, right? Since they did that drone strike, those like small drones and stuff like inside of Iran, and they smuggled those into Iran like 8 months ago. So they've clearly been planning this and waiting for the right time, which I guess is why you could make the argument that they're trying to pull us into something, because they clearly were planning on some kind of offensive or defensive if need be. Um, but they flipped an IRGC general. Like, they were doing the things that everybody does, right? Like the CIA does this kind of shit too, and everything. So um but I guess that's why you could make that argument that they're trying to pull us into their shit. But I think it's necessary.
We
You
weren't pulled
don't
into anything. That's the ultimate argument, right? They did it all on their own. All they needed was for us to do this one
right.
thing.
Yeah, they needed us to do the one thing. So, like you said, they kind of like they escalated it a little bit. And then time will tell really about the intelligence that comes out. Because it's like, is it the WMD's thing for Iraq, like all over again? We know that back in that time, the government was talking about this, doing the same thing to Iran that we did to Iraq, and doing regime change there and stuff. Like, we know that they've talked about that for the last, I don't know, what, 30 years. Um, so yeah, there's probably a little bit of confusion, corruption, dirty work going on here. I'm sure of it. Um, but I still feel like what we did was necessary. So, you're not going to hear an argument out of me about it. Like, I don't care what other people's position on this is. Like, this is my opinion, my position. And I think it was right. And if we set them back 2 years, fine. It's not, I think the point is that it's not a complete, we're not done here, right? Like, sure, we knocked him down 2 years. That goes by quick. So we're going to end up having to do this again before the end of Trump's presidency. So,
Well, I'm a little more optimistic on a longer time frame if they tried to at all, because obviously a lot of the brain trust got killed as well. But I feel like a week out or so since the 12-day war ended, things are. I'm looking back saying, like, Iran now doesn't have a nuclear weapon. That seems good, and we'll go on. And I think everybody should be happy about that because it ended proliferation in the Middle East. So,
and I agree. The only thing I would say about that, because yes, they did kill like a number of scientists who learned to build nukes and stuff, but I will say that just because they lost those people and capabilities doesn't mean that you won't have someone from China sell you a plan for a nuclear bomb. You won't have somebody from Russia do it, or we know that there's 300 some missing nukes that like throughout basically every country that had nukes has lost some level of them. So they're just hanging out there. We don't know where they are. So that's, I think, one part that people still have to consider. Like, I don't think that this is done. Like I said, we knocked them down 2 years as the estimates are, but I don't think that this is over. You would have to do something different. Am I saying that there should be regime change there? No, that historically has not gone well for the United States. Um, but I could see them taking that option now. But who would they get to do it? I don't know.
well, moving on to things that are over, we have a new budget. Brad, would you like to talk about the new budget, the bill?
This one's getting really confusing because they're saying it's going to add what I think $4.5 trillion to the debt um, in the next 10 years. But then there's other scores coming out that are saying that that's not true, and it's only as high as like 1.2 trillion to the debt in the next decade because of the offset of tariffs and stuff like that. So the CBO rated this trash,
The CBO is
basically.
wrong, by the way, like all the time.
Oh yeah, the CBO is consistently wrong, and there was actually somebody who was on a committee. I don't remember his name, but I just saw a video on it. He used to be on a budget committee, I think, and they had estimated Trump's first tax cuts in 2017 uh, that they would see a 3% projected GDP growth, and we did see that. Everyone's going to say the economy was bad under Trump. That's not true because COVID, you have to factor that in, and nobody does. But we did have a pretty booming economy prior to COVID under Trump. And of course, Democrats will say, well, that was Obama's economy, because that's how things go. Like, nobody wants to give Trump credit for anything. But they also, this administration is also blaming Biden for absolutely everything, too. Instead of taking any kind of accountability for it. But I mean, there is positive outlook so far, not even just in this bill, but like they added 147,000 jobs in the United States for June, I believe it
That
was.
was
Um,
very surprising.
it was surprising to everybody because they've actually consistently beat out projections, I think, for the last 3 months on adding jobs. And a report came out that actually showed the people taking these jobs. It's like 85% natural born Americans, and then the last 15% is like illegals or something like that. So we're actually getting jobs back to Americans or whatever, however you want to put that. It's not they took our jobs kind of thing, but it is interesting to see that this is happening under Trump. This bill, there's a lot of lies that are going on about this bill. Democrats are really pushing the 17 million people are going to lose healthcare coverage because of Medicaid and Medicare cuts. Um,
That is an
it's
accurate statement, but they're upset by the number. They're not upset by the means to which you get to that number.
So I guess part of the question would be, right, like if you're adding in work requirements to Medicaid, right, or Medicare, and you end up taking a job that now you're, say, full time and you don't need Medicare anymore or Medicaid, that technically is, yes, kicking you off because of a work requirement, but now you might have healthcare through your job.
Employer.
So, like, yeah, the 17 million is maybe accurate. I've also heard people throw out 11 million. They just like to throw out these large arbitrary numbers. Um, but if you have now healthcare through your employer and you don't need Medicare or Medicaid, that's a good thing. Like, that's a great thing. So
Well, the other thing
it's
is you might get that job and still need Medicare anyway.
right.
So maybe you
And you
don't
would
get kicked
still be
off.
eligible for it.
Right. So it can go many different ways.
And I think they're also like to call it a work requirement, which I is also kind of a misnomer because it's not a work requirement inherently. Um, you can be volunteering 20 hours of your time every week, and that actually meets your work requirement if you need Medicaid and stuff. So um, that's not kicking you off. That's saying, hey, you just need to go out and do something that you're physically capable of doing. But people who actually need it, that are physically enabled to work and things like that, or they said like taking care of minor children and dependents, things like that, like they aren't getting kicked off of it. and they can waiver the work requirement based off of circumstances. Um, and I think it's important that people go in and actually read the circumstances before they just, jump into the talking point of 17 million people losing their health care. Like, that's not inherently true.
It's just
And
easier. I mean, what we're really saying here, and I don't think anybody would ever disagree with me on this, if you're an able-bodied male, you should not be on Medicare. I mean, unless you're working and you qualify for it. So like I think there probably are scenarios out there where you are a guy who could work but you choose not to, and you do just kind of hang out all day. Those are the people you want to get off of it.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we actually just saw they the DOJ is actually bringing charges against 324 people for over $15 billion of Medicare fraud. So there's definitely fraud there in the Medicare system. We know that hospitals and smaller providers are routinely charging, like overcharging on Medicare and stuff like that, because quite frankly, they know the government's just going to pay it without a lot of oversight. Um, that happens for sure. So, obviously we're seeing it with the DOJ bringing those charges and stuff. So this bill's real weird. The right is still pushing it as no tax on tips and overtime, which is not true. It went from no tax on tips and overtime to now a credit, on your taxes at the end of the year, and only up to certain dollar amounts. I think it's 12,500 on tips, or 25,000, something like that, on tips, and then a little same for overtime. So not the same numbers, but essentially it's just a credit. Now people are saying, well, that's not no tax, that's just a credit. Okay, well, they do credits for other things, so stop complaining that it's a credit. Okay, you will get that money back. It's just not immediately in your pocket. Um, and that's that's one of the big things there, and that is a positive. Like, it's a step in the right direction, but they're only doing that for 3 years. Um, they're not extending that. I guess though it'll need to be revisited in 3 years, which is a crock of shit, because essentially Republicans are going to use this, and this is why they did it, as their talking point for the next election.
They want to take away your no tax on tips.
Exactly. That's what they're going to undo, the no tax on tips. And I guarantee you, that's going to be one of the huge, huge, huge talking points that Republicans have. And that's why they did that. It was kind of the same with the tax cuts in general, right? Like, oh, well, and they've been pushing this narrative. It would be the biggest tax hike ever if you get rid of the 2017 tax cuts, right? And so they did that, and they pushed on that, but they specifically crafted it to, like, make it a talking point for the next election. And I hate that. Like, if you're gonna do something, fucking do it all the way. Like, don't do it at a time, like in an increment where you can just use it as now your next talking point. Like, undo it.
Well,
Like,
the
it's
tax
just
cuts are permanent now, so
right. And you know, a lot of people are like, that was tax cuts for the rich. Tax cuts for the rich. Well, there's been studies that came out that I think something like 80% of the middle class received a tax cut. So stop with that shit. Um, Now, in this bill and the new tax brackets and what have you, people that make less than like $18,000 a year, I think will see like an increase in taxes by like $30 a year or some dumb shit. Like, it's very minimal, but it's
well,
still technically a tax increase.
I mean, I don't like that. I don't. If it was a penny, I wouldn't like it. So yeah, I say yeah, give them their $30 back. Like yeah, that sucks. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Like, if they'll go and fix it. I mean, So the House had their version of the bill, which was complete no tax on tips and overtime and stuff like that. And then it went to the Senate, and they get their hands on it and start making their amendments and like all this bullshit that nobody wants. And it comes back, and it's a worse bill, and it definitely was a worse bill when it came back from the Senate. And they passed it anyway.
Well, look,
We knew they were going to
that's
pass it, so
that's the
there
game.
were the only I think there was 3 or 2 no votes from Republicans, Thomas Massey being one of them, um, because he's Tea Party, like he doesn't want to raise the debt and all this other stuff, and he does like a doomsday counter on the debt, and like how he's always like sharing like the debt counter and shit. And he's very much against it, and he keeps getting voted in, and he takes like no money from PACs or anything like that. And now apparently Elon Musk has promised to support Thomas Massey to make sure that Trump doesn't just primary him and get him knocked out. So
That's he is not going to, but man, does that guy need to get offline and disappear forever. And he's doing that thing that it's kind of like what Ford did. He had his car company, and then he got into politics, and it was much more effective back then because he had this newspaper. Um, and
Tesla's struggling right now, dude. Like the stock keeps going down and stuff. Like it's the rest of the market's up like a lot. Um,
yeah,
and Tesla's still kind of going down from what I see every day. Like Elon Musk needs to step away from politics and like fix his shit.
he's not going to. He's did a Twitter poll, an X poll. He's like, should we make a third party? And it's like, buddy, you're just, I don't know why for somebody who's so smart and innovative, he is a very stupid person. Like, you can't,
Well,
you're gonna Ross Perot it. Like, do you not know
dude,
what happened?
Andrew Yang did the same thing. So he was like running for president as a Democrat, and he was like, we have to. He wanted to be a Democrat, and then he got shut out, like kicked off or out of the Democratic Party essentially, and then he threw his weight. I think it was behind. I don't think it was during the Biden election. It might have been. He might have been there during Andrew Yang.
Andrew
You
Yang
see,
ran for president in
yeah, during
2020.
was it in 2020?
I think so. That was 100 years ago.
So that might have been it. Might have been that. So then he throws his full weight behind Biden, and now he's like, we need a third party, and he started like his own third party. And it's like, well, you just spent all of this time supporting Democrats and all of their like buffoonery and bullshit, and now you're saying we need a third party and third parties need to be more relevant, but you weren't doing that when you were running as a Democrat. And this is the shit that drives me nuts. Like, if you don't believe third parties should exist prior to your party shitting on you, then stay out of the third party game.
Well, what is
Like,
in both of these cases? What is it that those people believe that party should stand for? They don't have it. All they say is debt, 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 debt. That's not an idea. That's not a thing. The left is always like abortions every single day, all day long for free, and Republicans are like tax cuts for whoever, tax cuts for the rich. All that shit, whatever they make up about each other. And then you go to these third parties, and it's like, well, what's your thing? And they're like, well, I don't like it. I don't like the way things are.
well,
Okay,
Andrew Yang is like a UBI, like Universal Basic Income guy for sure. He probably falls more in line with like the Bernie side of things or like the Green Party. But the Green Party's full of like hippies and weirdos and
it
shit.
doesn't. It's not a
So
thing anymore.
he wants to be. Well, they actually took money from some like Russian something or other. I think during everybody was talking about. I think in the 2016 election, it was Jill Stein, and everyone was like Russia, Russia, Russia about Republicans and Donald Trump. And here, I think they actually, the Green Party did take some kind of money from like Russia or some shit. So
Good
yeah,
stuff.
they're dead. I mean, they keep running Jill Stein out there, and she's just a kook. Um,
They all are,
but
man. They all are really just kind of out there. You know what? Let's do talk about one more kook and about the money in politics, and we could probably close off our discussion about things that are going on now with the primary in New York, where Zoran Mamdani, uh, who is from this person who's read me, I've read all about communism. This guy is like a communist, and he gets Qatari money, and his parents, try to get him. And he comes from like a privileged black background or whatever, but he's now like the hottest candidate that ever walked onto a stage on the left, and it is fascinating.
yeah, I think his mother was like one of the highest earning like Bollywood actors or something like that from India,
She's a
right? Like,
director, yeah.
yeah, so she obviously makes some kind of money. There's tons of money in Bollywood. Um, lots of movies come out of there. I mean, action films, like Netflix buys all of them now, so
Mm-hmm.
they're making, raking it in over there. Um, but that's what seems so weird about communism, right? Or even like like these socialist policies that everybody wants. They come from the affluent,
Yeah,
and it's like affluent people are like, we need to do this, and like, but yeah, that's because you can buy your way out of communism.
yeah. You don't
Like,
you don't have to pay the consequences of your
right.
policies, but when it comes to somebody like that, like it's they're like, well, it's out of context or isn't. Dude, the number one rule of communism is seize the means of production. He said that. It's pretty clear to me. There it doesn't get much clearer, I don't think. So I just find it interesting that like they have really tried to kind of cover and soften up his radicalism, and he's probably going to be the next mayor of New York City, which I know it doesn't matter to us, but New York is kind of like the driving force of the entire world economy, and he's going to do government run grocery stores, right?
He's very sure in his own brain that companies aren't going to leave New York.
He is,
Um,
and
he's
they
he's
absolutely
like
will. He's flat wrong.
adamantly sure about it. He's like, well, we're only going to raise the tax by like 4.5% to meet the same as like New Jersey, and like people aren't leaving New Jersey and all this shit. Um, but I don't I don't know, dude. Like I do think he's gonna win. I truly do think he's gonna win. But there are people out there that are like, I don't want to vote for that. Like I don't want him in. But those people aren't going to be the ones voting. I think the hardcore left is going to come out and vote him in. And we'll see what happens with government run grocery stores. I mean,
I'm not saying he
I
can do that, but I'm saying he said it. So you
I
might
think
want to take him
it's
seriously.
I think it's hard for me to say that it won't work, only because we have government owned liquor stores here in Pennsylvania. Um, and so like, and I'm not advocating for it. I wish we had a different system here. I truly do. Because like what was really funny is during COVID, all the liquor stores were shut down as non-essential services, right? And then they reopened them because the revenue, they were closed for maybe a week at most, and they realized that the revenue that they were losing from having them closed was so detrimental to the state that they reopened it under the guise of helping people not go through alcoholic withdrawal. Like, so they're like, well, alcoholics need this to not die, so we're gonna like reopen the liquor stores and shit. But it is interesting. Like, we have a fight here going now with recreational marijuana. Pennsylvania is like a state in the middle. We're essentially like Israel in the Middle East for marijuana. Everyone around us has recreational marijuana, but
uh,
Pennsylvania doesn't. And so it would bring in billions of dollars to the state in taxes and stuff, which is what part of what they're fighting over. but Republicans shut it down, and they're very amenable to having recreational marijuana in Pennsylvania, but they're shutting it down because the Democrats want to push a similar style of store here, where the state owns all of the marijuana stores, just like they own the liquor stores. And they're like, no, absolutely not. So they shut that down. So that's the fight that's going on here with recreational marijuana. So it'll be interesting to see. But grocery stores have such low profit margins, and that's like what the right is arguing about for New York is like,
Yeah, it's like
why do
one to
you
two
want to
percent.
make a state run like 1 to 2%, store, and then you're going to take away those like 1 to 2%?
I'll tell you why. Because he was 19 years old and he read it in a book somewhere or he heard it from somebody and that became his ideology. That's about it. Because it won't work. He doesn't know what the margins are for a grocery store. He doesn't know how grocery stores work. He wants price controls because he heard it was a good thing. Maybe it was the Soviet Union. I don't know. But yeah, I would love to see New York set bread prices. I would love
So
bread
there
lines.
are a lot of states that already do have price controls that exist. That this one's different because he wants to like price control everything, and like statistically speaking, price controlling like rent, like he wants to freeze rent and stuff like that, is very, very detrimental to um like buildings in general. Like they tend to become worse. Maintenance is done way less on these kinds of buildings because you just aren't making the money to keep up with the rising costs of maintaining the buildings and shit. So you end up creating like Section 8 housing and shit that's like falling down because you want price controls on things and people don't move, and um it could kind of stagnate people coming in and out of New York, in my opinion. But
Well, some ideas are so bad that only an intellectual could believe them. And for whatever reason, every like generation or two, we have to go and relearn why this shit doesn't work and why it never did. And it's always that whole like the real communism, real socialism has never been tried, blah blah blah. And um, I say, I say, go
God, I
ahead.
hate that argument.
I say go.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
say go ahead, but like I don't say go ahead. Like I don't want to see that shit,
Well,
because like you said, every like why do we have to do this every fucking 50 years? Like fight communism like back, which I guess it's about time, right? Like
sure.
I
I
guess
think
we're
so.
in that era, um, and the real communism's never been tried. Like is just such a smooth brain stupid fucking argument because you have to have an enforcement mechanism for that to happen,
What's
right?
that
Everybody
enforcement mechanism,
believes.
Brad?
Exactly, it's the government. Like
Yeah.
everybody believes in this like utopia, right? Well, you have to have an enforcement mechanism, which is the government. Who runs the government? A president. And so the argument is, well, there's always a dictator involved in communism. That's because you have to have an enforcement mechanism.
Yeah.
Like, plain and simple. Because human nature is greedy by nature, right? Like, if I have stuff in abundance, you want my abundance. If I don't want to give it to you, you have to take it by force. That doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't make me a bad person for having an abundance of things. But you have to take it. If you don't take it, someone else has to take it. But it's still by force because I don't want to give it. Like you can't have communism without dictatorship. That like they tried that, right? Chad, they tried it.
They tried it all
It's
over the
been tried
place.
on a small scale. Didn't work.
They tried it small scale. They tried it big scale. They've tried it in other countries. Everybody goes, "Oh, well, Sweden's all." No, Sweden's not a socialist country, really. They've backed off of most of those policies. You know, and he has this other line. Speaking of abundance, and I hate this. I really do. There shouldn't be billionaires. And I'm like, buddy, who do you think pays for all of this?
Right.
Like, I mean, billionaires do in fact pay their fair share. Now, I don't know how much more they should pay. That's what politics is for. But they do pay a lot, like most of it. And so you want to get rid of them.
45%.
who's going to pay your government-run grocery stores if you get rid of billionaires? Like, this is all the back. It's sort of like, it's fun to say it out loud. Like, oh, there should be billionaires. I feel powerful and wise. It's like, what?
The 1% pays 45% of all taxes. Now, don't get me wrong. Could they be paying more? Sure. But is it a matter of increasing their taxes? No. You want them to pay more? How about you shut down the loopholes that the current tax system already holds? Just close those loopholes and you'll create probably hundreds of billions of more dollars in taxes, but you just want to tax them more but leave the loopholes open, and then what? They just find more loopholes to get through it. Like it, that's part of the problem. Like you don't everybody thinks we always need new fucking regulation for something, right? New regulation. Well, how about taking a look at the regulations you already have and understand that, like, oh, this is the loophole that we're going through. Like, you can essentially, and this is part of what rich people do, they don't own anything on paper.
They
They
own
put things
stuff.
into a trust or they own stocks, and then they live on loans that they take out based off of the perceived value of their stock portfolios. And everyone's like, well, this is why you need tax unrealized gains. It doesn't work that way. You can't, because like banks, they'll give you loans based off of your portfolio under the assumption that it always goes up, right? And that's a risk that they are willing to take, but they also know that you can afford to pay back that loan. So it you know they just go through these loopholes to make sure that they are paying as little tax as possible, because they don't technically have an income, because they're living on loans that they take out that's based off of their stock portfolios, which you can't, they don't touch them like ever. And then they continue, like I said, putting everything in like trusts and stuff like that that don't get taxed when you pass down that to your kids and stuff. And then they just have infinite money or whatever on hand too. Like, but here's the thing, everyone can do that.
Sure.
Everyone can do it.
We all have the
Like,
same rules.
right, we're all playing by the same rules. Here's the difference: you don't know what those fucking rules are
I am really
because you don't
sorry.
understand tax code.
Yeah, I first of all, they can't name more than two billionaires anyway, maybe three. The president, I guess, says he's one. Um, but like, I'm really sorry that some nerd in 1996 decided to sell books on the internet. And fast forward to today, I'm really sorry about that. But you can't just you. They want them to die, basically. I mean, if the United Healthcare CEO is any indication, they just want them to not exist at all, like living, and it's bad. And it leads me to this like other thing I hate when people say, and I ranted about this to you, but they say we're in late stage capitalism, and you say, what does that mean exactly? And it's like an unanswerable question, because you'd have to first say, when was it early stage capitalism? What was that all about? And and then what happens after late stage capitalism? Like, what do you mean by that? And they can't answer that. They don't. Nobody reads. Nobody understands anything. It's crazy.
No, it's made up terminology. Like, explain to me what early stage capitalism is too, and mid stage. Like where does that come from? How did we get to late stage capitalism? Like, I
They,
I
they
don't.
said they said we were in late stage capitalism in like the 70s, when people were driving shitty cars with lead in the gas and
Oh, so
listening to the
we've been in
radio.
late stage capitalism for, like 50 years.
Yeah, a thing that you have this
Oh,
device in your pocket that was invented in like 2006 or 2008. This is really new. Now it's late stage capitalism because I can order a car that drives itself on here.
well, so basically, I guess when would early stage capitalism come into play? Because, like, obviously we had money and stuff like that when we were still colonies. So would that be like early stage capitalism,
Well,
where
we
we were
were,
like
yeah.
trading gold?
Well, it was late stage capitalism when they got rid of slavery, or when I don't know what, you name it. Like, oh, everybody can have a car now. Like, oh, we got the everybody can have a car now. Like, what? 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 boy, late stage capitalism sucks. Yeah, it's really wild that people make these arguments, and I understand living through things sucks, right? I get that because I'm not happy with who's president, and I'm not happy with the things he says. I'm not happy that he says I might go for a third term. Like I don't like that he says that. It sucks
Oh,
living through
absolutely
it,
not.
but you gotta look back and just say like, yeah, this is not anything but progress that you could live on. You could get 700 calories a day for like $5 now. Like that's pretty. That is that late stage capitalism. I don't know. I
I
don't want to go back.
guess.
I don't want to go back. So yeah, it's all this like it's all this thinking that like okay, everything's bad and we have to blame everything on climate change and there was a flood. So of course that was because of either the Republicans killed somebody or climate change killed somebody, and that's generally
Republican climate change killed somebody,
right.
Aaron. That's what it was.
Yeah, and so these arguments are being made again, and I'm like, you guys are looking for excuses, but you're not. You don't have any good ideas, and so we're
No,
gonna
but
do it again.
that's kind of bearing out, and that's what'll be interesting to see. Right, midterms are coming up quick; they'll be here real fast,
Yeah.
and we're gonna see what happened because Democrats haven't done anything. Not that they
Mm-mm.
can really. There's not much that they can do. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries used his like magic minute on the bill and stuff like
He
that.
used the
Whatever.
racist filibuster.
Yeah, which
He called
pretty
it.
sure they wanted to get rid of
Yeah,
the filibuster at one point.
yeah, because it stands in the way of progress, Brad. Except for when they do it.
Apparently, but remember they wanted to get rid of it, and here they want to use it now. So
Yeah, it's
it's
really
like
good.
I mean, there's a point to it, but I'm struggling to see what Democrats are offering other than what they've offered for the last 4 years, and which was an abject failure, and why you lost in the 2024 election.
It,
Like
it's
it is.
it's a layup for them because A, Trump owns whatever consequences come from this bill now, and B, whatever he does, that party owns it because he'll just tell whoever is running that they're going to get primaried if they don't go with it. And so that they have like all the tools they need, they just don't have anything, no ideas. They were all throat clearing on the 4th of July. America's great, but and it's that kind of stuff that's like you guys are absolutely fucked. I think their party is like 17% of the party like loves America, or that was kind of like the poll framing. And that's pretty crazy. Like I get it when your guy's not in power. I get it when you're not in power at all. That sucks. But like America's pretty great, and I don't know how they reverse that trend because that's all they've told each other for 30 years now is that America is this horrible place that does bad things, and Trump does it too. Trump also shits on America all the time, and he gets away with it, whatever. But they
That's because as Republicans and stuff like that, and people um that are his supporters, they just love America as a whole and understand that there's no better place on earth to live. People are constantly trying to come here. It's not just from third world countries and stuff like that. People are trying to come here from Europe. People are trying to come here from Canada. Uh, it's just a better place to live.
Brad, Canada is
So,
a third world country. I hate to correct you. Um, yeah, it's crazy that like
well,
these
Canada
people.
could be America if they were brave enough.
I am really glad that you also mention this all the time, which is that when they try to leave, they find out they can't go other places and they can't be in other places. And yeah, it's really important to remember that.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things. Like people start to realize that they are absolutely wrong about European countries and stuff like that. Like they're all cracking down on immigration, all of them. Canada is very difficult, like to actually immigrate to. America was at least one of the easiest places for you to immigrate to, and now it's not like they're making it tougher. Apparently, they just made it easier to get passports. I don't fully know about that. Mine's pretty new, so I don't have to worry about it for like a decade. But um, you know, I, it's like the same thing with a lot of like all this trans stuff and like doing trans stuff for minors, like all of these European countries that everybody likes to point to for everything else in this fucking country. Like, we should be more like Denmark or like whatever fucking country you want to talk about. They're all reversing course on like the trans stuff. Like, eh, and now what? We're the last country that's still like fighting about this shit, whereas everybody else is kind of like, oh, we were wrong, and now they're taking away all of that shit, and it was a quick like 10 years and done.
It's an
You know,
80-20 issue, and they're
right?
why take the 20? They
But
do.
that's how Republicans are still winning, because they take the 80 on an 80-20 issue. And I think Scott Jennings was just talking about this. He goes, if it's 80-20, 70-30, like it doesn't matter. That's the right side of history, right? Is like the majority rules of things, and like the majority of people believe this. And the Democrat Party has just been taken over by that 20% of people who believe in something that the rest don't. And they've let that creep in. And until they're willing to get rid of that, which people thought maybe that was Joe Biden, right? Getting back to normalcy. But then he was just brain dead. So he got taken over by like, you know, the younger generation that he hired to be in his cabinet.
Yeah, I think it's kind of amazing to watch because there is it's all about social risk and social capital. So if you come again, if you're going like, hey man, this stuff's getting kind of crazy, you might lose a friend or two, and that's a risk that a lot of people aren't willing to take on that side. Um, it's sort of like the right now where you're like, oh, you did this, and now you're no longer a part of the under the umbrella, part of the club. And I really don't care about infighting in political parties, but
Well,
it
I would
just,
just say that we're in late stage social capitalism. That's
oh
all.
no, that means it's also bad. You lose all your friends. Yeah,
You
it's
call anything late stage,
yeah, late stage is a
it,
it's a
it's
scary word.
evil.
Yeah, a lot of things are scary words. And I'm sorry that, like, yeah, I'm sorry that ICE agents are going out there now and deporting people, and I'm sorry that they have to live indoors at Alcatraz instead of outside in a fenced in area like under, I don't know, Joe Biden. But
Can you explain a little bit more about this alligator Alcatraz thing?
it's just a
Because I
facility.
I've just started seeing like memes about it essentially, and I just don't even like. Did they actually call it alligator Alcatraz?
I
Like, who
think
named it
so.
that?
Because it's in Florida. It's just a detention center for people that are being deported. And remember, when the election happened, I told you people are not going to like seeing images of certain people getting deported. Sure, you can get rid of the criminals. Nobody's really going to care, or maybe they do. I don't know. Apparently, they do, because they'll go to El Salvador to bring back a wife beater. But yeah, it's just a facility to deport people, and it's actually nicer than all the other ones, ironically. But you know,
Well, this new bill did just give, I think, 45 billion to build new detention centers for
I
immigrants.
I
So
don't really like deporting people that didn't do anything wrong. Like I'm pretty soft on it. I don't think that's a good idea either. Um, the problem is I'm too sensible on the matter, and it sucks that ICE agents are going to Los Angeles rounding people up, and maybe they deserve it. I don't know.
So apparently they're deporting like 3,000 people a day, and Tom Homan just came out and he said, "Well, we would have to deport 7,000 people a day just to get rid of all of the illegals that Biden let in over the last 4 years."
Which was kind of by design. I mean, that was kind of intentional too, and that wasn't good
Yeah.
either. But
What do you think about? I think in this bill, or they're trying to do something to exclude illegal immigrants from the census.
oh, I don't take. I think the census matters. Uh, it would benefit the right if they did that because
Oh,
it
100%.
would change the districts. I don't know that it helps in you need census data for the people that live in the places they live in, right? So like if you're going to get rid of that, it's going to be bad data. So I'm in the middle like always. What do you think?
Naturally. Well, I'm all for California losing some seats. I'm not gonna lie.
They'll do that on their own, Brad.
Oh, apparently.
They
I
haven't
mean,
built a
everyone's
fucking
leaving.
thing in 6 months since those wildfires happened in Los Angeles. Yeah, this our gas
This is,
tax
but
just went
see,
up.
that's what
It's
Trump warned about. Like, that's why he was sitting there with Karen Bass and Newsom and was like, how long is this going to take? And she goes, oh, 6 months. And he goes, why?
yeah,
Like,
and here we
it
are.
can take 2 weeks and it won't be that a problem. And here he was right about that. I
People
mean,
forget, man. That story is gone now, and you know it's the same thing with New York, right? Like, why is housing so expensive? Because you won't let anybody build any fucking housing.
well, they can't. There's nowhere to do it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about. I don't know that they can or can't do it. I'm just saying, like, so you're gonna freeze rents? Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling very pessimistic about people's ability to understand things lately, and it's driving me crazy.
I don't blame you, bud.
Yeah, I got nothing positive to end on. What do you got?
Well, we just had NHL free agency
Oh yeah.
that began, and we had the NHL draft. Um, I did do. My wife is not super into watching the draft. She does not care. So I did do something nice for her in that I made like a little draft party. Now it was just the two of us, just the two of us. But I hung up like streamers and a sign that said like "Welcome to the NHL Draft 2025." Um, I I have like I don't know 20 plus hockey jerseys from different teams that I hung up. And I hung up a sign that said on the clock. And every time we were watching and a new team came up, as long as I had a jersey, I hung it up under the sign of who was on the clock and stuff, which was interesting because there was some trades and stuff. So I actually had to get up and like it was a lot more work than I anticipated it to be. I thought we were gonna just take a photo of it and be done, but she was like adamant that I kept changing it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, got like some sandwiches, made specialty cocktails. As you know, I'm one to make a nice, delicious drink, um, and so it was cool. You know, I liked the Flyers draft. I actually thought it
Oh,
was
good.
pretty good. Um, the Islanders had actually a crazy good draft there, and free agency opened, and the Flyers didn't do much of anything, which I was happy about. And I'm sure you got to be real happy with how the Florida Panthers have handled their free agency.
Brad, tell me 8 months ago, that Brad Marchand, Stanley Cup winner, is gonna sign with the Panthers, and they're gonna keep Ekblad and Bennett. I would not believe you. I would say you were lying. The Marchand thing alone, I'd be like, what happened? Did the was there an apocalypse? Like, how did that happen? And now
Dude, I thought one of the three they would keep.
I
Like
thought
one of the
one
three
of
they'd be able to keep.
yeah, I thought it would be Bennett. Honestly, I didn't. I don't know what to say. Like, you have this, you have a back to back Stanley Cup champion team, and you're just gonna keep all not one, not four pieces, but like the core 10?
Yeah,
10.
you're gonna roll them all out there. I mean,
Wow. And you got them all
it's
for like
incredible.
you got them all for like through the end of the decade. Holy shit, dude.
They're gonna struggle to fill some spots.
Sure,
Like Schmidt was very very good for them
he
in
was
the
very
final,
important.
and he went and signed like a 3-year deal for like 3.35 million a year or something like that. Um, so they're gonna struggle, I think, a little bit. I wonder what they're gonna do with like Samaskevich because he got pushed completely out of the lineup once Marchand came in. So he didn't play hardly at all during the playoffs, I don't think.
I don't think
So
he
you kind of
played,
wonder what
man.
they're going to do with Samaskevich. Maybe they could trade him so they don't have to pay him because he'll likely warrant a larger next contract.
He's really
Um,
good.
but they have Lusterine in there, I think, locked up. I'm not sure what his contract looks like. They have Lundell that's locked up there for like I think the next 4 years as well at $5 million, and he's one of the best third line centers in the NHL. Should be a second line center, but is pushed down because
They've got
you have
so
Bennett.
much, yeah.
Um, and like in my salary cap hockey league, I had Lundell, and I was as a keeper, and I was gonna keep him. And now I'm debating trading him or not keeping him because if he doesn't get second line minutes, it's not worth it to me to like keep him. Like I could keep somebody else who will get more production, and he's definitely capable of more production, but he's just hampered by Bennett being there now that he's not leaving. But I mean, kudos to the Florida Panthers for being able to keep those guys. It'll be really interesting to see. You know, Bob has 1 year left on his contract at 10 million, so I'm sure they'd be interested in bringing him back on like 1 year deals or something like that at lower money after his contract is up. But the salary cap's supposed to be going upwards of like 104 million next year, I think. Well, next season it'll be like I think it's like 95 or something like that. And then it's supposed to supposedly hit like 104 and then like 115 or some crazy shit. So
Whee!
they have guys locked up and they'll be able to add pieces like in the future. So who knows, dude? Like the sky could be the limit for them. I think they want to be, if they three-peat, like I don't speak of a modern dynasty in terms of like you won 3 or 4 cups in a row. Like if you win 3 in 10 years, in my opinion, that's a modern dynasty with how difficult it is to win the Stanley Cup. And there's so many more teams now. Um, but if they win 3 in a row, that might like obliterate that dynasty conversation because that would be super impressive.
That would be crazy. And, the names we didn't even mention, like Forsling and Verhage and Kachuk, like, it's just a team of stars. It's
Yeah, they're all locked up, man, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens on defense too, because I mean they're gonna have I think Mikola back. I don't believe he's a free agent,
no,
but you have Ekblad back, you have Jones there for I think another 3 years or so. So their window's wide open for the next probably 3 to 5 years for
yeah,
sure.
Jones also key component, play extremely well. Couldn't believe it. Yeah, I couldn't be more excited and shocked. I was shocked that they got all
I think
three.
everybody was.
Yeah,
I fully expected Bennett to go somewhere and sign for 10 million a year. I fully expected Ekblad to go and be making 8 or 9, 8.5 to $9 million a year somewhere else. Marchand took like the same contract he already had, like 6.1 or some shit like that. Like he could have went somewhere and signed a 4 year, probably $9 million per year deal somewhere, and he didn't. Um, there's a lot to be said for Florida. Like people love playing there now, which is funny because I remember them not having fans and not really being like a good fan base, and that's completely changed. But Stanley Cups will do that.
yeah, and you have a brand new practice facility that was just finished like a year ago, and you have you're not paying taxes. Like the weather's nice. I don't know, man. It's just
Well, the good news is they just signed a new CBA, I believe. So there won't be any work stoppage when it comes to hockey, which I love that.
yeah, this is all good. This is the best note to end on. I think this is great.
It's the best we could have done.
I'm so excited now. Sports. That's why sports is great because it always is there, and even F1. I don't know a lot about F1. I try to keep up, but like I was watching that movie, and I'm like, you know what? F1's fucking great. Like I should get into F1 just because.
Sports will pull you out of a dark place, unless you're a Maple Leafs fan.
Oh, or a Dolphins fan.
Fair,
Yeah.
fair.
All right. Well, if you've got anything else for us, we can hear it out, or we could just get out of here.
I think that's all, man. We'll do it again next week.
Cool. Sounds good. See you later.
All right, see you, pal.